What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because recently, over the course of the last couple months, there have been just loads of little leaks that are beginning to slip out. It's hard to know which of these are real and which of these are lies, and so because of this, I've actually been avoiding talking about them, mostly because we don't really know the validity of this, but to be quite honest, a lot of you have been blowing up my social media lately with some stuff that is just so interesting that I think that it could be very, very real. So today I wanted to go through some of the biggest rumors and which ones I think are real and which ones are obviously fake. Let's start off with that screenshot that's been circulating across Twitter over the course of the last 24 hours. It looks like this. Now, just from the appearance, it seems to be a screenshot from the official Square Enix account, possibly talking about a mythological event by the name of Final Fantasy VII Uncovered. Now, this is interesting because we did actually get an Uncovered event for Final Fantasy XV. Now, if you remember, this happened in early 2016, and it was basically their way of showing us a giant tidbit of the game to get us hyped before its release date. During this event, they actually revealed 15 major details, including stuff like the characters, concept art, the vehicles, basically showing everybody this is why you should buy the game. So it's not exactly outside the realm of possibility that we could see this same thing done again for Final Fantasy VII. In fact, I'll say that I believe that this rumor is half fake. This tweet is photoshopped. It's just something somebody made to be silly, but I do believe that we will see a Final Fantasy VII Uncovered event relatively soon. This does bring me to the biggest thing that I've seen circulating a ton though, which is about the relevance of Final Fantasy XV and how it connects to Final Fantasy VII. So what I'm talking about is that, there was a bit of an issue with the release of Final Fantasy XV. A lot of people actually hate this game. Like, flat out, they despise it. And it seems like, internally, Square Enix's theory is that people hate this game because, quite frankly, it was overhyped. They were talking about this game for almost 10 solid years. And after that much buildup, people were expecting an RPG masterpiece, and what they got was Final Fantasy XV. And it sounds like, internally, it seems like Square Enix is very, very nervous of repeating this mistake. They want Final Fantasy VII to be a giant bestseller. I mean, I've heard some people even saying that they're hoping to sell 10 million units within the first fiscal year to make sure that the Final Fantasy VII Remake ends up being the biggest breakout success of the entire franchise. I believe that those numbers are possible, but overhype is definitely a demon that you have to worry about. In the current media age, everybody loves juicy rumors and trailers and analyzing screenshots and stuff, but too much of that can end up hurting your sales. I mean, I definitely think that that's part of what actually kills some games. Now, this is going to sound a little bit weird here, but just stick with me. I do think that some games would actually sell better if they have less hype around them, like something along the lines of Battlefield V. So Battlefield V absolutely bombed, and part of it is because the developers just kept saying some super stupid stuff, which ended up making it where the fan base turned against him before the game even had a chance to be released. Whereas if you look at something like Apex Legends, that just dropped, everybody started playing it, and it already has 50 million players in just 1 month. It's just showing that there needs to be a good balance between hype, news, and surprises, and I think that right now they're trying to pull things back. This does bring me to something else that I think is an interesting rumor that's been circulating about the Final Fantasy VII Remake that I personally do not believe. I've seen some people saying that it will most likely be open world. So for most of the screenshots we've seen so far, it looks like it is going to have a very action-y RPG system where you're actually going to be flipping around, bashing people with your swords, maybe casting magic. And it does sort of bring to mind the system that was basically used in Final Fantasy XV, where you could travel anywhere on the map, take up bounties, do side quests in whatever order you wanted, even at the end of the game. And personally, I do not believe this, mostly because Final Fantasy VII is actually a very straightforward story. I'm somebody who has personally finished Final Fantasy VII over 50 times. I've beaten this game over and over again, and something that's always fascinated me the most about it is that it's kind of a very linear tale. I mean, it starts out as basically terrorists trying to blow up a factory, and it goes on to saving the entire planet. It is kind of awesome just because it is so simple. It's grandiose, it's epic, it has some great writing, it has some cool psychological elements, but it is a straight line from A to B to C. I think that the remake is also going to follow this pattern. I think that the Final Fantasy VII Remake realizes that the most important aspect is preserving the original elements. If you stray too far or do too much, I do think that it will end up hurting the project in the long run. Now, this isn't to say that I'm not open to them making some major changes. I mean, let's face facts, they're gonna have to overhaul the tale a little bit just to be a little bit different. People don't want to just see the exact same game a second time because that won't be as fresh and interesting. I definitely think that part of the reason the Resident Evil 2 remake is selling such crazy hotcakes is because it's different. It's a fresh retelling of an old game, and I think that the Final Fantasy VII remake sorta needs to walk in those footsteps. Now, the last main rumor I see a bunch of lately is that people are beginning to speculate that the game could very well come out in 2019, and I think that this is very possible. I think that we're in an interesting space right now where everybody is all hands on deck. So a lot of people that were involved with the Final Fantasy VII Remake were also involved with Kingdom Hearts 3. Even the director is the director of Kingdom Hearts 3. Now that that game is shipped, and has been shipped for over a month now, they have a lot of time to fully shift over. Everybody now can center themselves on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I think that there is a second side to this coin that a lot of people aren't realizing, which is that Square Enix is probably getting a little bit nervous. The generation is about to end. People are getting ready for the PlayStation 5. And if you remember, we actually have seen a Final Fantasy that was released already that ended up selling very, very poorly because it was released in a bad time of the console generation. Remember, Final Fantasy XII actually came out after the announcement of the PlayStation 3, which everybody agrees very much hurt its sales, mostly because everybody at that point was already saving up every single penny they could for the next generation. After you see trailers that are supposed to push the boundaries of gaming and are super giant and new and different, people get less hyped for the current content. I definitely think that Square Enix is trying to get this game out before we start seeing trailers for PlayStation 5 games. Now, I just want to also say, I do believe that there are going to be A, multiple Final Fantasy VII Remake games. I think it is going to be a trilogy. And B, I do think that the games will end up being released on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. I also think they'll probably come to things like the Xbox One and the Xbox 2 as well. But I think that Square Enix is very, very terrified of angering their investors, the people who pay their bills, the people who basically are there to make sure that they have everything secured while they work on these games. They need this to be a success. A lot of people are going to buy it just because of the name, Final Fantasy VII Remake, but still, if everybody is rushing out to buy a PlayStation 5, and worst case scenario, perhaps the PlayStation 5 won't be backwards compatible, which would be so mind-blowingly awful, but if that happens, then people aren't going to be picking up the Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I do really believe that it is possible that we could see it released this year, or at least a big chunk of it. I'm still a little bit nervous about the idea of it being a trilogy. I am nervous about the idea of 3 separate games to try and comprise such an isolated, focused story, but I'm also still very open to it. There's so much room within the Final Fantasy VII universe. If you include things like Advent Children and Crisis Core, you could put that content also in there. Give us big flashbacks that take us to the Crisis Core world. This is actually a rumor that's been circulating a lot that I think is really, really tasty, which is that they're trying to combine everything from the Final Fantasy VII universe into one trilogy. Make it so the games are finally there, finally done, and finally there to just get every fan so hyped they squirt hype out of their eyes. But what do you think about it? Is this stuff that seems very, very real to you, or does this seem like a lot of fluff with no actual content? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep streaming. I had to refilm this video like 15 times because for some reason there's a helicopter just flying right over my house over and over again. So if you still heard it a little bit, I apologize. I'm going to try and edit it out. God, I hate helicopters. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.